In 197 BC, on a foggy hillside in Greece, two armies that should never have met collided by accident. One was the Phalanx, the weapon that had conquered the known world under Alexander the Great. A wall of 18-foot spears, marching forward as one unstoppable machine. For 150 years, nothing in the Mediterranean could break it head-on. The other was something newer, stranger, and far less glamorous. Small, flexible squares of Roman soldiers, armed with short swords, who could turn, split, and reform in seconds. By the end of that afternoon, the invincible Phalanx was broken and scattered across the hillside, and a new master of the battlefield had announced itself to the world. This is why the Roman legion dominated its era, and why almost everyone who fought it eventually lost.
For 400 years, from the plains of Italy to the deserts of Syria to the forests of Britain, this system of small, disciplined, endlessly adaptable units conquered more territory than almost any military force in human history. Kings, tribal chiefs, and rival empires all learned the same lesson, usually too late. A phalanx could win a battle. The legion was built to win a war.
The phalanx was, on paper, close to perfect. Rows of men, shields locked together, spears projecting forward in overlapping layers. The front 5 ranks of a Macedonian phalanx alone presented an enemy with a wall of spear points he simply could not reach through. Charge it head-on, and you died before your sword ever touched a Macedonian soldier. For a century and a half, from Alexander's conquest of Persia to the wars in Italy, nothing could break that wall in open, flat terrain. But a phalanx had one brutal weakness, baked into its very design. It only worked as a single, rigid block. It needed flat, open ground to keep its formation intact. It could not turn quickly. It could not fight uphill or downhill without gaps tearing open in its line. And if the ground broke the formation apart, even slightly, those 18-foot spears became useless, unwieldy poles in a man's hands, and the wall of death became a crowd of exposed individuals. Rome's answer wasn't a bigger spear or a thicker shield. It was a completely different idea of what an army should be. The Roman legion was built not as one solid block, but as a checkerboard of small, independent units called maniples, roughly 120 men each. Each maniple could move, wheel, and fight somewhat on its own. Gaps between them let the whole formation flex like a living thing, advancing over rough ground, pulling back a wounded unit and replacing it with a fresh one mid-battle, wrapping around an enemy's flank. All while a rigid phalanx could only ever do one thing: walk straight ahead. And the individual Roman soldier was built for this kind of fighting. Instead of a long spear, he carried 2 heavy javelins called pila to hurl at the enemy before contact, designed to pierce shields and bend on impact so they couldn't be thrown back. Then, at close range, he drew a short, brutally efficient stabbing sword, the gladius. Where the phalangite needed room to swing an 18-foot spear, the legionary needed only 18 inches to kill a man standing right in front of him. This was the whole revolution in a single idea. The phalanx was a perfect machine for a battle that never changed. The legion was built for a battle that always would.
So what actually made the legion the deadliest army in the ancient world? 3 things, and each one solved a problem no other army of the time had even thought to solve. Tactical flexibility. Because the legion was built from small, independent units instead of one giant block, it could do things that would have been physically impossible for a phalanx. It could advance through forests, over hills, across riverbanks, terrain that would have shattered a rigid spear wall before it ever reached the enemy. It could quickly wheel to face an attack from the flank or the rear, something a phalanx, built to only ever face forward, simply could not do fast enough. And in the chaos of an actual battle, Smoke, noise, blood, terrain no map could predict. Small units led by their own officers could adapt on the spot, while a giant phalanx depended entirely on every single man in a mile-long line staying in perfect step. A phalanx was a hammer, devastating, but it could only ever swing one way. The legion was more like a hand, dozens of independent fingers that could grip, twist, and adapt to whatever shape the enemy gave it. Second, the legion never fully tired. It was designed to fight in relays. The legion drew up in 3 staggered lines. The youngest, least experienced troops went first, absorbing the enemy's initial charge and wearing it down. Behind them stood seasoned veterans, ready to step through the gaps and relieve the front line the moment it grew exhausted or started to buckle. And behind them, held in reserve, stood the most battle-hardened soldiers in Rome. Men who had survived a dozen campaigns, thrown in only when the fight was at its most desperate, or to deliver the final, decisive blow. A phalanx had no such system. Every man in that wall of spears fought the entire battle, from the first clash to the last, with no relief and no way to swap out the exhausted for the fresh. Human arms get tired, legs buckle, attention slips. In a long, grinding fight, a phalanx could only ever get weaker. The legion, fighting in relays, could actually get stronger as the battle wore on, throwing fresh, rested killers into the fight exactly when the enemy had nothing left to give. Third, and this is the factor almost no one talks about, but it might be the most important one of all. The Roman army was an engineering project as much as it was a fighting force. Every single night, on campaign, in enemy territory, exhausted from marching or even from fighting that same day, the legion stopped and built an entire fortified camp from scratch. A ditch, a rampart, a wooden palisade, laid out in exactly the same grid every single night, so that any soldier in any legion anywhere in the Roman world could walk into camp in pitch darkness and know exactly where his tent was. This sounds almost boring compared to a battle. It wasn't. It meant a Roman army could never truly be caught by surprise, never be trapped without a defensible position, never be worn down by attrition the way an army without safe rest simply falls apart over a long campaign. Rome didn't just win battles. It out-organized, outlasted, and outbuilt almost everyone it fought. And a phalanx-based army, built purely to win one glorious, decisive clash in an open field, had no answer for an enemy that could lose a battle and simply come back next season, rebuilt, resupplied, and ready to try again.
By 197 BC, Rome and Macedon were at war. The Second Macedonian War, a struggle for control of Greece. Neither army was actually looking for a decisive battle that day. Both were maneuvering blind, in thick fog, on a range of hills called Cynoscephalae, the Dog's Heads, and their advanced scouts simply stumbled into each other on the ridgeline. What followed was not a battle either side had planned. It was a battle neither side could avoid, and that accident of terrain and timing would end up being the perfect demonstration of everything that made the legion superior. The Macedonian King Philip V commanded a classic phalanx army, thousands of men in the tightest, most disciplined spear formation in the world. Facing him, a Roman consular army under Titus Quinctius Flamininus, built from legions organized in those small, flexible maniples. And the ground itself was about to become the deciding factor. Cynoscephalae wasn't a flat plain. It was a jagged range of steep, broken hills, cut by ravines, covered in loose rock. About the worst possible terrain in the ancient world for a rigid 18-foot spear wall to try to hold formation on. The battle began in pieces, as each side fed in troops blind through the fog. And at first it looked like the old order would hold. On the Macedonian right wing,
King Philip personally led his phalanx down a slope onto a Roman line that hadn't fully formed. On advantageous, semi-open ground, doing exactly what a phalanx was built to do, that wing crushed everything in front of it. Roman maniples on that side broke and were driven back in real disorder. For a moment, it looked like Macedon was about to win the entire battle outright. Proof that the phalanx, when it got the terrain it needed, was still one of the most terrifying weapons ever fielded. But a battle is not decided by one wing. It's decided by what happens on both sides of the field at the same time. And on the other side of that ridge, something very different was unfolding.
On the Macedonian left wing, the phalanx was still coming down the same broken, rocky slope.
Close the gap on the left.
But it hadn't fully deployed yet. Some units were still marching into position when the Romans hit them. And on that terrible terrain, still trying to form up, the phalanx's greatest strength turned into its greatest weakness. Those 18-foot spears, still tangled and half-ordered, were now just dead weight in men's hands. The flexible Roman maniples tore into the gaps, and that entire wing collapsed. Then came the moment that decided the whole war. An unnamed Roman military tribune, watching the battle unfold from the winning left flank, made a decision that no phalanx commander in history would have been structurally able to make. He peeled away about 20 maniples, roughly 2,000 men, from the victorious wing, and on his own initiative, without waiting for orders from the consul, wheeled them around and marched them into the rear of Philip's victorious right wing. This is the entire war in a single moment. A phalanx has no spare parts. It cannot detach a chunk of itself mid-battle and send it somewhere else, because the whole formation only functions as one giant, rigid unit. The legion could, because it was never one thing. It was always dozens of small, independent things, and any one of them could be redirected the instant an opportunity appeared. Philip's triumphant right wing, still pushing forward, still celebrating what looked like victory, had absolutely no way to see the 20 maniples now marching up behind them. Phalanx soldiers, packed shoulder to shoulder, spears out front, physically could not turn to face a threat from the rear without their entire formation disintegrating. They never got the chance to try. The maniples hit Philip's victorious wing from behind, and the effect was total. Men who moments before had been celebrating a decisive victory suddenly found themselves fighting and dying in a direction their formation had never been built to face. Spears 18 feet long, perfect for a wall facing forward, now worse than useless against swordsmen attacking from the flank and rear. Packed together too tightly to turn, too tightly to even raise a weapon in the new direction, the once unstoppable phalanx simply came apart. Panic spread through the ranks faster than any commander could contain it. What had been the winning side of the battle collapsed into a rout within minutes. Thousands of Macedonian soldiers, the finest heirs of Alexander's war machine, were cut down where they stood, still packed shoulder to shoulder, unable to run, unable to fight back, unable to do anything but die in formation. By the time it was over, Macedon had lost perhaps 8,000 men. Rome had lost a few hundred. King Philip escaped with the shattered remains of his army. And the phalanx, the weapon that had conquered half the known world, would never again be treated as the answer to everything. Cynoscephalae wasn't a fluke. Over the following 2 centuries, Rome would meet phalanx armies, tribal warbands, and heavy cavalry across 3 continents, and beat almost all of them for reasons that went far beyond any single battlefield trick. The legion could be endlessly rebuilt. When Rome lost an entire army, and it did catastrophically more than once, it simply raised another one. Citizen soldiers could be trained in the same standardized system, with the same drills, the same formations, the same equipment, in city after city, across an enormous territory. No other ancient power could lose tens of thousands of men and have a fresh, equally trained army in the field within a year. And the legion never stopped evolving. Unlike the Phalanx, which remained almost frozen in its original design for centuries, the Roman military constantly absorbed what worked from the very enemies it defeated. Cavalry tactics from the east, siege engineering from the Greeks, weapons and formations from Gaul and Iberia. It wasn't loyal to one perfect system. It was loyal to whatever won. The legion ruled for 4 centuries by refusing to be just one thing. But it was far from the only force that rewrote the rules of war. Next time, we'll look at warriors who needed no formation at all. Riders who conquered more of the world in 25 years than Rome did in 400, armed with nothing but a horse and a bow. If you want to know how they did it, subscribe. You won't want to miss it.